Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Spirit of Liberty broadcast. I'm Pastor Tommy McMurtry from Liberty Baptist Church in Rock Falls. Very important subject I want to cover today, especially considering all that is going on in the world right now. I want to talk about big government versus small government. Now, when it comes to this coronavirus crisis that is going on in the world, I am not going to sit here and act like I've got the solutions for all the world's problems and I know everything that should have been done in every situation and how all this could have been avoided. I don't think there's anybody that's capable of that. However, I will say that what I have seen take place and how things have been handled, not only in our country, but in the world, they have not been right. And these things have not been done the way the Bible said things should be done. I believe one of the reasons we're seeing the mess that we're seeing in many places is because of too much big government. I think too few people are making too many decisions for too many people. This is not what God outlined in the scriptures. This is not the example that we see in the Bible. And what we're going to do before we go and I show you what the Bible says, I want us to take a look at just some really messed up things that have been going on, that have happened in the world. And when we see these things, it ought to cause us to say, what were they thinking? Because anybody with half a brain can look, and when you see these areas and you see the situation, even though you're not from these places, you know what they tried to do would never work. But then we have to ask ourselves, why did they try to do the things that they did? And I believe the answer to that's very simple and very obvious. But let's go ahead and start out. I want to show you this clip. This was in South Africa, and this is an example of where you watch this and you're just like, what on earth were these people thinking when they did this? And watch South Africa as they try to enforce some social distancing.
Engage them. Because if you engage them, they come to you, then they are breaking the law.
This is not the way a highly restrictive 21-day lockdown is supposed to work. A solitary policeman screaming and pleading with thousands of people to spread themselves out.
Please, 1 meter away, do this, Ceci.
Alexandra Township is
going to try to control that many people,
and the coronavirus will do great damage. But people need to eat. How long have you had to queue?
Oh, don't ask me.
Okay. Sorry. A long time?
Sorry.
Long time.
The South African government has ordered everyone to stay at home, although individuals can go to the shops to buy food. But it's not supposed to work like this.
We are out now, going to make shopping. You see, we are meeting different people. If I'm infected, maybe this man is not infected. I'm spreading the virus to the people. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
We saw no social distancing, no masks, no sanitizer, and one policeman in charge.
Not easy at all. Not easy at all. Not easy at all.
The experts fear a catastrophe as COVID-19 spreads through South Africa. But township residents took little notice of the government's new rules.
Let's go. Faster.
As the day wore on, the army moved in. And we watched as they were heckled and jeered from Alexandra's alleyways.
Stay indoors, please.
The plan has changed. The government's brought in the troops now to shut down shops and to try and get people to stay in their homes and their shacks. But the problem is, these troops are completely outnumbered here. There's just not enough of them.
This lockdown is strict. Anyone caught outside their home faces 6 months in jail. But it's not taken seriously here. People sharing one-room shacks are not going to stay inside.
I think the soldiers want you to go back inside.
You've got a one-room house that has about 6 people or so. So it's still the same. You can't have 6 people stuck in one room for the whole day, for the entire day.
The residents ebbed and flowed around the troops, who were given a mission they could not complete. The soldiers began to lose their patience. We saw one man kicked and punched for standing outside. It was a demonstration, not of strength, but weakness, for this township and many others cannot be policed, and its residents will not self-isolate. As the virus advances, they are running a terrible risk. John Sparks, Sky News, Johannesburg.
All right, so folks, you saw that there. Now, they're talking like they will not listen, they will not practice social distancing. They can't. They literally cannot do it. Now, how in the world is it healthy to have 6 people go all pile into a one-room shack and sit there for 21 days? Did you see how close all those buildings were to each other? Those people, they have no choice. You cannot expect to just put that many people in little cages and expect them to sit there for 21 days, yet that's what they're doing. You can't expect that many people to go, through one grocery store now that they're all going to have to panic buy because they're being told they got to stay in their house for 21 days. All that mob at the grocery store wouldn't have happened had the government not stepped in and told everybody we're going to lock you all down. And we see that yet what they were trying to push there is what they're pushing in a lot of other countries. Now, understand, you can lock people up in their house in the United States, many people, for 21 days or a month and a half when they've got, thousands of square feet, multiple rooms. They've got, heating, air conditioning, they've got televisions, they've got internet, they've got video games, they've got all these things to keep them occupied. But then you go into a country like that where you've got many people piling up into a little one-room shack and you're going to tell them stay inside for 21 days? That's ridiculous. Who gave that order? And I'll tell you who gave that order. It wasn't local leadership. It was probably somebody from the UN who was just saying, this is what all the other countries are doing. What works in some countries is not necessarily going to work in every country. That was a horrible display that we saw right there. You're going to go take care of people's health by kicking them and slapping them in the face because they won't stay inside. And even folks, even if it was possible for them to do these things, it's clear in that country and that culture, those people are not going to do those things. And that's something that only local leadership can understand, is the culture of that area and how people will respond to different things. And the response that they got there should have been very obvious based on the culture, the situation that they're in. If I was living like that, you better believe I'm not just going to go sit in a little shack for 21 days. I'm going to try to go outside where I can breathe because I care about my health. I don't want to just stay cooped up in a little shack for days piled on top of other people. Yet they tried that there. Okay, local leadership didn't make that decision. Somebody else way up high made that decision. That was foolish, what we saw right there. What works in South Africa is not necessarily going to work, or what works in the United States is going to work in South Africa. And here's the interesting thing about South Africa. I looked this up. There's 57.78 million people living in South Africa, according to Google. And as of April 15th, the confirmed cases of COVID-19 are 2,506. So now that might not be an accurate number with being South Africa. Who knows how much testing and stuff is there? But good night. I guarantee you there's 34 deaths. I guarantee you if they try to implement that lockdown the way they were trying to implement it there, they're going to cause a lot more than 34 deaths. They're going to do a lot more damage. And the leadership in South Africa should know that. But you know what? They're trying to follow the lead of what somebody's telling them in the UN. Okay? And why is it that we're seeing, more of this call for global government during something like this? There are way too many countries. You can't expect everyone to do the same thing. Now, you and I would know why they want to get everybody doing the same thing. Eventually, they're planning on telling the whole world what's necessary for all of us is to take a mark. And so this is a practice, all right? This is a step towards that. But as Christians, are we going to stand for that? Are we going to be okay with this just messed up, backward style of running things where one person's making decisions for millions and billions of people? That is nuts. So let's see another example. This is in Veracruz, where, again, I promise you, if you'd have talked to any local law enforcement, if you'd have asked them, hey, what will a lockdown do in your community? What will happen as a result of the news media reports that are going to be going on, the decisions the government's making? What do you think will happen? And this type of thing has happened in many places in the world. And the news aren't showing a lot of these videos, but check out this video where in Veracruz where looting broke out. So look at this. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of people all piling around each other for one thing. That didn't help the cause. Just destroying this place, stealing everything. You think the local law enforcement didn't know they had hundreds and thousands of thieves in that community? Now, this type of thing wouldn't happen in every community, but it will in some communities. There are some lawless communities. You can't do a lockdown like this and not expect them to just go crazy. Look at this guy loading up on candy. Well, that's really essential right there. These are wicked people taking advantage. They should have seen this coming. So there were other videos I saw like that were much worse, where the places were just completely destroyed. People running out of stores, not with food, with clothes, with televisions, electronics. I mean, this type of thing, they had to know it was coming. Okay, the local leaders would have known it was coming, but this is not. It wasn't the local leaders that made these decisions. In many cases, they don't want to make these decisions, but the higher ups are telling them, do this in the whole country. And then they're surprised when stuff like that happens. It shouldn't be a surprise at all. Okay, and these are in other countries, but even in the United States. Okay, let's watch an example of what happened. This was in Philadelphia. What businesses are having to do in Philadelphia, because the business owners know their neighborhood. You know, they know their community. So they know what needs to be done. Let's see what's happening in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia business owners are boarding up their properties to protect them from looters. Eyewitness News reporter Howard Monroe is live in Center City with some business owners' concerns while stay-at-home orders are now in place. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Jessica. You know, there are about 5 businesses or so here on this block of 13th Street and Walnut that are boarded up. And so the business owners, it's so they can protect their inventory that's inside. However, not everyone has been so lucky. A business owner's nightmare. Police were called to Mitchell & Ness Nostalgia Store at 12th and Chestnut at about 8 Tuesday night. They were responding to a burglary in progress. To prevent similar attacks, business owners across the city are now boarding up their windows.
Certainly the look isn't great, but we understand, considering the contents of particular stores, especially liquor stores and the like, that there's a concern about breaking a window and people, you know, taking items.
Data released by the police department shows burglaries to commercial properties are down 23% since the stay-at-home orders were issued. But many business owners aren't risking it. However, with the plywood comes graffiti.
The graffiti is unsightly and unfortunate, but there's a lot of things going on besides graffiti.
Eyewitness News reached out to industry representatives about the business owners choosing to board up, but were told many fear to speak out because they don't want to be a target. The mayor's office says the police department is increasing staffing levels in Center City.
Given the deployment changes that Commissioner Outlaw announced last week, we actually have more officers on the street patrolling these areas as well.
Now, in addition to burglaries for commercial properties being down, police data also shows that burglaries for residential properties are also down. Live in Center City, Howard Monroe, CBS 3 Eyewitness News.
Howard, thanks.
All right, so notice just, you know, how bad that looks and what that's doing to the city. Now, that's not happening in Rock Falls, right? But it is happening in Philadelphia. It's a different city. It's a different place. I guarantee you the local leaders knew that type of thing would happen. The local businesses knew what was going to happen. That's why they boarded the place up. And we notice too how they're so concerned about liquor stores. Many people have been asking the question, why is it that liquor stores are considered essential and churches are not essential? Let me give you a little dirty little secret about that. Because drunks will do whatever they got to do to get their booze. Okay? We saw that there. Drunks are gonna get their booze. Okay, now while cities are different, nations are different, drunks are all alike. They'll do anything to get their booze. And so they've got to keep those things open to keep them from becoming vandalized and getting looted. Because again, people know their communities, they know how the people are, and you tell a drunk he can't have his liquor, he's going to get out of control real fast. They need these guys drunk and, sleeping in their vomit in their houses. So that's why they're letting liquor stores stay open, because they understand the, repercussions of closing them down. And where churches, Christians, while a lot of them are pretty upset right now, we don't typically get violent. We don't go destroying places when we don't get what we want. In fact, we usually just forget all about it and vote for the Republican in the next election anyway. So, that's why we're seeing that going on right now. But again, local leaderships, they should have seen that coming. Okay. President Trump, he understands how certain things are going to affect people. Watch this clip where he talks about how there's going to be massive depression, massive drug use as a result of this. Why? Because druggies are going to get their drugs. And when things get stressful and difficult, druggies do more drugs. And that, again, because of the measures they're taking, it's causing, unintended side effects. Well, the thing is, certain communities, if knowing where this is going to be a problem, could choose not to do some of these things. Other areas, it's not going to be a problem. Some areas, it's going to be a huge problem. They should be allowed to do something different. Listen to what President Trump says out of his own mouth back when he was fear-mongering everybody and telling us 2.2 million people were going to die. Now they're talking like maybe 60 to 80,000. Boy, they sure missed it by a little bit. 2.2 million? Fear-mongering is what he was doing. And while he's talking about 2.2 million deaths from COVID-19, he's talking about all these other deaths that are going to happen as a result of drug use and suicide and things. But you know what? He just does it anyway. Instead of just saying, let's let the local communities figure out how best to avoid this type of thing. Listen to what he said.
When you ask me that, it's so easy to figure that. I mean, massive drug use, massive depression, mental depression, massive numbers of suicide. Anxiety causes, disease, they say. A lot of people, you're going to have tremendous. And hopefully we're not going to have that, because hopefully by what we're doing, we get the best of both worlds. We don't have 2.2 million deaths. We have a number that's much less, much, much less. And at the same time, we get our country running again. I've been watching that for the last week on television. Body bags all over in hallways. I've been watching them bring in trailer trucks, freezer trucks. They're freezer trucks because they can't handle the bodies. There's so many of them. This is essentially in my community, in Queens, New York. I've seen things that I've never seen before. I mean, I've seen them, but I've seen them on television in faraway lands. I've never seen them in our country. Elmhurst Hospital, unbelievable people. I mean, when I see the trucks pull up to take out bodies, and these are trucks that are as long as the Rose Garden, and they're pulling up to take out bodies, and you look inside and you see the black body bags. You say, what's in there? It's Elmhurst Hospital. Must be supplies. It's not supplies, it's people. I've never seen anything like it.
All right, so there's our president worried about people committing suicide and doing drugs and everything, while he tells them about 2.2 million people that are probably going to die, but talking about body bags and people getting hauled off in freezer trucks because so many people are dead. And again, why is Trump making so many decisions for the entire country? Okay, his job as a president, he swore to uphold the Constitution. The federal government, the higher governments, are to protect the rights of the people in case the local governments get out of line, in case local governments start violating the Constitution. The president cannot, and he should not, micromanage the entire country. It can't be done. It's foolish. It's not the way our country was set up, and it's not what we see in the Bible. Now let's go ahead and let's look and see what the Bible says about how things should be run. Let's see a great example. After the children of Israel came out of Egypt, we see this story of Moses when he's judging the people, and his father-in-law sees him handling things the way the United States handles things, and he stops him. And let's see what it says. It says, "And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from morning unto the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto evening? Moses, you can't do this to the people. You can't be judging everybody. This is bad for you, and it's bad for them. And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come unto me to inquire of God." Everybody's coming to me. Everybody's asking me. Everybody's always going to the president for everything. He needs to learn to just say, "It's not my job." Go to your local leaders. Ask them. It says, "When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws." And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, "The thing thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone." If Moses couldn't do this type of thing, you better believe Donald Trump can't do this type of thing. And Donald Trump is over a much bigger land, way more people than Moses. You better believe he can't handle this. You better believe he can't stop all these deaths. And I'm not blaming him I'm not going to blame him for the deaths. Okay? I'm not going to blame him for that stuff. I'm getting on to him for trying too hard to micromanage all these things and failing to uphold the Constitution. In his country during his administration, churches are being shut down. People are being told they can't protest. The First Amendment is gone right now, and it's on his watch. He's letting it happen. Okay? Forget the virus. That's up to the local governments to figure out what they're going to do on that, how to protect themselves. It's not up to him on how to protect the entire country. That's ridiculous. He's hurting the people by what he's doing. It says, "Hearken now unto my voice, I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein thou must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens." Where's the rulers of tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands, or millions, or how about billions? Okay, so billions, where does that come? Why do you think we saw that mess that we did in South Africa? Because you've probably got somebody in world government, in the UN, telling all the countries, somebody telling all of Africa what to do. That cannot possibly work. Okay, one person can't judge billions of people. And it should be an up to local leadership. We see thousands was the highest that it went. And you say, why the difference? Why is there some tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands? I'll tell you why. Because, for example, if you were a judge over me, I require very little work. Okay, I'm not had to go to court for anything. I'm not taking anybody to court for anything. I have never been arrested. I've never been in jail. I am a very easy person to manage because I know how to take care of myself. Okay, but there's some people, there's some families, that's not the case. They're calling the cops all the time. They're constantly having domestic disputes and disturbances. They're constantly being thrown in jail. They're constantly going to court and suing everybody, but not me. I mean, I don't think any judge in town knows my name. They have no idea who I am because I've never had to stand before them because I'm capable of taking care of myself. I have a family of 9 people, and none of us have been to jail. None of us have been to court. Why? Because we're all taking care of ourselves. I'm taking care of my own family, and we're doing just fine. I don't need them. But, there's wicked people. They need a lot of management. They need a lot of people dealing with them. So I believe when it's talking about tens, that's because, they had some riffraff in Israel too. They had some low lives in Israel that needed a lot of judging, but some people need very little. And so that's why we see that difference in the numbers. If everyone was like me, okay, we would need very few judges. We would need very few police officers. There's going to be a time in my life where I'm going to need them. So I'm glad they're there. But so far, they haven't really been needed. And that's good. But if there was, thousands of me, occasionally they're going to be getting the phone call. They're going to be needed. So we need them there. So that's why we see that difference. But it doesn't go more than thousands because, nobody can judge that much stuff. Nobody can do that. And so there's some communities of thousands that need very little policing, that need very little judging. There's some communities of hundreds that need a lot. So do you think that whenever there's a difficult situation, that town that needs a lot of management is going to need to be judged the same as the one that needs very little? No, there's a difference. When you do a lockdown, it's one thing if you put in a lockdown in a town that's very wealthy, where people have big houses and they're fine financially. But you go into some poor neighborhood where people are living in tiny little apartments or little shacks, and there's a ton of people there and very little money. You think it's going to work there too? That's impossible. There's too many different things that you have to look into, and local leaders know how certain things are going to affect their local area. But a president cannot possibly know how his decision is going to affect all 50 states and all the hundreds and thousands of counties within those states. And therefore, they should not be making decisions like that. It needs to be passed down to the smaller, more local governments. That's what needs to be done. And that's what our president needs to do right now. And so it says in verse 22, and let them judge the people at all seasons, and it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. Okay, sometimes there's going to be the big things, there's big decisions, or there's very unique situations where you need to go to that person who's higher up, who maybe has more wisdom in that area. And that's what they would do with Moses. But most stuff, if you've got a judge that fits these requirements, he's going to be able to handle most of these disputes, especially too, if you teach these judges the law. And that's what's supposed to happen too. We have laws that are passed. Judges are supposed to know these laws, and they're supposed to enforce those laws. There's some things that's not a question. It's not up to opinion. Okay, it's not up to the president whether or not we should allow the freedom of assembly right now. That's not his decision to make. That's already been made in our Constitution. We've been guaranteed that right. People shouldn't be going to him saying, Mr. President, should you allow churches to be open right now? Why are they asking him that? That's not his place. That decision's already been made. It's already been decided, and he ought to be hiding behind the Constitution and that. It's his job to do that, to uphold the Constitution. It says in verse 23, and if thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. And I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to this situation, we've got a real virus out there that is deadly, and some things need to be done. But what needs to be done, it's different from community to community. And you say, well, so what policy, what do you think should be put in place? I wouldn't even pretend to try to put something together, because what will work in Rock Falls won't necessarily work in Chicago. And what will work in the United States is not going to necessarily work in South Africa. And it's high time people get back to looking to their local leaders, the people that they know, people in their own communities that live among them, that know them and know how it will affect them. They're the ones that need to be making these decisions, not the higher ups. So anyway, I hope this was a help, and I hope that you will encourage, your local leadership to lead. I want our town to not need our governor, and I want our state to not need the federal government. We ought to be able to take care of ourselves. And if something ever comes up where we are need them, I'm thankful if they're there if we need them, but we shouldn't need them all the time. And right now, we don't need them. We need them to protect our rights right now because there's a lot of wicked leaders that are trying to seize liberties right now and get wicked agendas passed. And we've got a constitution that is all ready to go to protect us from these things, and they're doing nothing about it. It makes me sick. And in the meantime, you've got people in their towns not looking to their local leadership. They're looking to the President of the United States. That right there just shows how backwards we are in our society. And it's high time people get educated on these things. They get educated on the Constitution, get educated on the Word of God. Our founding fathers, they tried to set up a government that was similar to what we see in the Bible. And we see areas where they got things right. And I just wish we'd go back to practicing these things. But anyway, that's all we have time for today. I hope this was a help and a blessing. Pray for our nation. We need prayer right now. Pray that people will be protected from the sicknesses and things that are out there. But pray too that our leaders, our local leaders, will lead, and these higher ups that are out there making all these decisions for millions of people. Pray that they go jump in a lake because they've done enough damage. Enough's enough. Thank you so much for watching this. We will see you all next week.